Hello. I hope you're comfortable. If you're not, now would be a good time to adjust your pillow or pull your blanket up a little. There's no rush. I'll wait. Okay. I wanted to talk to you tonight about New Year. Not just New Year's Eve, but the whole idea of it. The turning over. The fresh start. All of it. And if you fall asleep while I'm talking, that's perfectly fine. That might even be the best outcome. Sometimes the most important conversations are the ones we drift away from. And then later, we're not sure what we learned, but we feel a little different anyway. It's January now. Well, it might be December when you're listening to this. Or February. Time is strange that way. But I've been thinking about New Year a lot. Because it just happened. And also because it keeps happening every year, which is one of the more reliable things we have. I was in the grocery store the other day, Gresh's Market, on the north end of town, and they still had a few bags of party hats on clearance. The kind that say Happy New Year in shiny letters that are supposed to look like fireworks. They were marked down to 49 cents. And I stood there for a while, looking at them, thinking about how strange it is that we decide, collectively, that one day is so different from the day before it that we need special hats. Not that there's anything wrong with special hats. I bought one, actually. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but it felt important to rescue it, somehow. Give it a purpose. Maybe next December 31st I'll put it on, even if I'm alone, just to honor the commitment we've all made to this day. New Year's Eve has always been a little awkward for me. There's a lot of pressure. You're supposed to be doing something significant, something memorable, ideally with other people who are also trying very hard to have the best night of the year. And that's a lot to ask of one night, especially when it's cold, and you're tired, and really, you've been tired since October. When I was younger, my family would stay up until midnight. We'd watch the ball drop on TV, the one in Times Square, which I've never seen in person, and probably never will, because the idea of standing in the cold with a million strangers, unable to use a bathroom for 6 hours, sounds like a very specific kind of torture that humans invented for themselves. But on TV, it looks nice. All those people believing together that something is about to change. My dad would make popcorn in the air popper. My mom would let us have ginger ale in the fancy glasses, the ones with the gold rim that we weren't supposed to touch the rest of the year. And we'd count down from 10, all of us together in the living room, with Dick Clark on the TV, and then at midnight we'd cheer, and my dad would say, "Well, there it is. A whole new year," and we'd all go to bed, and the next day would feel pretty much like the day before. Except we'd have to remember to write the new year on our checks. I wonder if Dick Clark ever got tired of counting down. Probably not. He seemed like he really loved it. There's something I've been thinking about, which is, why do we care so much about New Year? I mean, really care. It's arbitrary, isn't it? The Gregorian calendar, the one we use, was invented by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582, which means before that, New Year was a different day, and in other cultures, it still is. The Chinese New Year moves around, based on the lunar calendar. Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, is in the fall. The Persian New Year Nowruz is in March, during the spring equinox, which actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Spring is when things start over. January is just cold. But we picked January 1st, and now every year, on that day, we wake up and we think, this time will be different. This year, I'll exercise more. I'll call my mother more often. I'll finally organize the basement. I'll be kinder. I'll be better. And the strange thing is, it works. A little bit. Not because January 1st is magic, but because we've agreed that it is. We've decided, together, that this is the day we're allowed to start over. And that permission, just the idea of it, is powerful. I made a resolution once to drink more water. This was maybe 6 years ago. I'd read somewhere that most people are chronically dehydrated and don't even know it. And I thought, well, that's probably me. So I decided 8 glasses a day, every day. New year, new me. I lasted about 4 days, not because I didn't want to drink water. I like water. It's refreshing. But because remembering to do something 8 times a day is actually very difficult. You'd think it wouldn't be, but it is. By day 4, I'd had maybe 3 glasses, and I thought, well, this isn't working, and I gave up. But here's the thing. For about a month after that, I did drink more water than I used to. Not 8 glasses, maybe 4, maybe 5 on a good day, and that was better than before. So even though I failed at my resolution, something changed. I became a person who thought about water more often. And sometimes, that's enough. I think that's what New Year is really about. Not the resolutions we keep, but the moment when we believe we can keep them. That feeling, right at midnight, or right when you wake up on January 1st, when everything still feels possible, before you've had a chance to disappoint yourself. When the year is still blank like fresh snow, and you haven't walked on it yet. There's a field behind the house where I grew up. In the winter, it would fill up with snow, and if you were the first one out there in the morning, you could see that no one had touched it. Just flat, white silence, and you'd stand at the edge of it, and you'd think, I could walk anywhere. I could go in any direction. All of it is available to me. And then you'd take one step and you'd leave a footprint. And that would be that. You'd chosen a direction. The field wasn't blank anymore. But for just a second it was, that's New Year. I want to tell you about something that happened to me a few years ago on New Year's Eve. I was invited to a party. This was unusual because I'm not really a party person. And most people know that about me, so they don't usually invite me to parties, which is thoughtful of them. But this was a small party, just a few people from school, teachers mostly, and my friend Sarah said it would be low-key. She said, you can just sit on the couch and eat cheese. No one will bother you, and that sounded okay. So I went. The party was at Tom's house. Tom teaches history and has a very large collection of National Geographic magazines, which he keeps in his basement, organized by year. He's a good guy, the kind of person who remembers your birthday and doesn't make a big deal about it, just mentions it in passing so you know he remembered. When I got there were maybe 8 people. Everyone was drinking wine or beer, standing around the kitchen, talking about their winter breaks. I got a glass of water and sat on the couch, like Sarah said I could, and I ate some cheese. It was a white cheddar, very sharp, the kind that almost hurts your tongue a little. I had several pieces. Around 11:30, someone suggested we go around the room and say what our resolution was for the new year. This is the kind of thing that happens at parties, and there's no way to avoid it without seeming rude, so I just waited my turn. People said the usual things. Exercise more, read more, spend less time on their phone, travel somewhere new, learn to cook something other than pasta. When it got to me, I panicked a little because I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't made a resolution, so I said the first thing that came to mind, which was, I want to learn more about trees. Everyone nodded, like this was a perfectly normal thing to say. And I guess it was, but I'm not sure I really meant it. I do like trees. I think they're interesting, but I don't know if I wanted to learn more about them specifically. It was just what came out. But then Tom, the history teacher with the National Geographics, he got really excited. He said, "That's great. I have a book about trees. I'll lend it to you." And I said, "Oh, you don't have to do that." And he said, No, I want to. It's a great book. You'll love it. So now I had to learn about trees. The book was called The Hidden Life of Trees by a German forester named Peter Wohlleben. And it turns out, Tom was right. It's a great book. It's all about how trees communicate with each other through an underground network of fungi. They share nutrients. They warn each other about pests. They take care of their young. They're basically a community, which I'd never thought about before. I'd always thought of trees as individuals just standing there alone. But they're not. They're all connected. I read the whole book in January, and then I started noticing trees more. When I'd go for a walk, I'd look at them differently. I'd think, what are you saying to each other right now? Are you okay? Do you need anything? Which is a strange thing to think about a tree. But also, maybe not. The point is, I didn't mean to learn about trees. It wasn't a real resolution. It was just something I said at a party because I felt like I had to say something. But it changed the way I see the world a little bit. And that happened because of New Year. Because we were all sitting around, trying to be better, and I accidentally committed to something, and Tom held me accountable by lending me a book. And now I know that trees have friends, so maybe New Year works, even when we don't mean it to. I've been thinking about what it means to start over, not just on New Year, but in general. People talk about fresh starts, like they're simple, like you can just wake up one day and be different. But that's not really how it works, is it? You take yourself with you. All your habits, your memories, your ways of thinking, they come along. You don't get to leave them behind just because the calendar changed. But you do get to try. And trying is underrated, I think. There's a diner in town called Marilyn's. It's been there for 40 years. Same owner, same menu, same booths with the red vinyl that's cracked in places and patched with duct tape. Every January 2nd, not January 1st, but January 2nd, Marilyn puts up a handwritten sign in the window that says, "New Year, same great coffee?" I love that sign, because it's true. The coffee is the same. The eggs are the same. The toast is the same. Nothing about Marilyn's changes just because we decided to flip the calendar. And that's okay. That's comforting, actually. Some things should stay the same. Some things are good the way they are. But also, every January, Marilyn adds one new item to the menu. Just one. Last year it was a cranberry walnut muffin. The year before that, it was a southwestern omelette with green chilies and pepper jack cheese. She doesn't make a big announcement about it. You just notice it one day, tucked at the bottom of the menu, and you think, oh, something's different. That's how change happens, I think. Not all at once, not with fireworks and countdowns, but slowly, quietly, one muffin at a time. I asked Marilyn once why she does it that way, why she adds something new every year. And she said, well, Joe, if I changed everything, it wouldn't be Marilyn's anymore. But if I never changed anything, I'd get bored. So I change a little bit. Just enough to keep it interesting. And I think about that a lot. You don't have to become a completely different person on January 1st. You don't have to throw out everything you were and start from scratch. You can just add one thing, one small thing, a new habit, a new interest, a new way of thinking about trees. And maybe, by the end of the year, you'll look back and realize you're a little different. Not because you tried so hard, but because you tried just enough. I want to talk about midnight for a minute. Midnight is a strange time. It's the exact moment when one day becomes another, the border between before and after. And on New Year's Eve, we put so much weight on that moment. We count down to it. We watch the clock. We wait for it like it's going to bring something with it, some kind of transformation. But most of the time, midnight is just another minute. I've stayed up until midnight a lot of times in my life, and I can tell you, It doesn't feel that different from 11:59 or 12:01. The air doesn't change. The light doesn't change. You don't feel different. You're just tired, and now it's later. But on New Year's Eve, we pretend it's magic, and I think that's okay. I think it's good, actually, to have moments where we pretend something matters more than it does, because sometimes, if you pretend long enough, it starts to matter for real. When I was in high school, I had a science teacher named Mr. Vreeland who told us about time zones. He said that midnight happens over and over again, all around the world, every hour for 24 hours. It rolls around the earth like a wave. And when it's midnight here, in Michigan, it's already tomorrow in Japan. And it's still yesterday in California, which means that time is happening all at once, everywhere, but also it's not. It's always right now, somewhere. And it's always yesterday, somewhere else. And tomorrow is already here, just not for us yet. I thought about that a lot when I was younger. I'd lie in bed at night and think, right now somewhere someone is waking up. And somewhere else, someone is eating lunch. And somewhere else, someone is saying goodbye. All at the same time, which made me feel very small, but also very connected. On New Year's Eve, when we count down to midnight, we're joining that wave. We're stepping into tomorrow with everyone else in our time zone. And then, an hour later, the people in the next time zone over do the same thing. And an hour after that, it happens again. It keeps happening, all the way around the world, until we've all made it to the new year together. And I think that's beautiful. Even if midnight is just another minute, we're spending it together. All of us, everywhere, believing that something is about to change. I had a neighbor once named Gene. Gene was retired, in his 70s, and he lived alone in a small house, with blue shutters and a birch tree in the front yard. Every morning, he'd walk down to the end of his driveway in his bathrobe and slippers to get the newspaper. And every morning, he'd wave at me if I was outside, and he'd say, "Another day, Joe. Another day." He said it like it was a good thing, like he was grateful for it. I didn't think much about it at the time. It was just something Gene said. But then one year, Gene didn't come out for the newspaper, and then another day, and another. And then there was an ambulance. And then there wasn't. And then a few weeks later, there was a for sale sign in his yard. And I realized I'd never see Gene again. I'd never hear him say, "Another day, Joe," which made me think about how many days I'd taken for granted. How many days I'd woken up and thought, here we go again, same old thing, without realizing that same old thing was actually kind of a gift, because it's not guaranteed, is it? Another day. None of us knows how many we get. And I think that's part of why New Year feels important, because it's a reminder that we made it. We got through another year, 360 to 5 days, more or less. Some of them were hard. Some of them were boring. Some of them were wonderful. But we were here for all of them, and now we get to try again. I think Gene would have liked that idea. Another year, another chance. He seemed like the kind of person who appreciated chances. I miss him sometimes. I miss the way he'd shuffle down his driveway in those worn-out slippers, not caring that it was cold or that he was still in his bathrobe. I miss the way he'd wave with the newspaper in his hand like he was saluting the day. I try to think about him on New Year. I try to say it out loud, just to myself. Another year, Joe. Another year. And I try to mean it the way he would have meant it. Let me tell you about the quietest New Year's Eve I ever had. This was about 4 years ago. I was living alone. Well, I still live alone, but I was especially alone that year, if that makes sense. Most of my friends had plans. Some were traveling. Some were going to parties. Some were staying in with their families. And I didn't have anywhere to be, which was fine. I've never minded being alone on New Year's Eve. It's actually kind of nice. No pressure, no small talk. Just you and the calendar, coming to an agreement about what happens next. So I decided to make a night of it. I went to the store and bought ingredients for dinner. Nothing fancy. Just pasta with marinara sauce, garlic bread, and a salad. I bought a bottle of sparkling grape juice, the kind that comes in a wine bottle, so you can feel a little fancy even though it's just grape juice. I came home and I cooked. I took my time. I chopped the garlic by hand, nice and thin, the way my grandmother used to do it. I let the sauce simmer for a long time, longer than the recipe said, because I wasn't in a hurry. I toasted the bread in the oven until it was just the right amount of crispy, and then I set the table. Just for me. I used a real plate, not a paper one. I put a cloth napkin next to it. I poured the grape juice into a wine glass. I even lit a candle, which I never do, because I'm always worried I'll forget about it and burn the house down. But I was very careful, and I sat down, alone, at my table, and I ate. It was one of the best meals I've ever had. Not because the food was amazing. It was fine. It was good, but it wasn't anything special. But because I was there, completely there, paying attention to it. I wasn't watching TV or scrolling through my phone or thinking about what I had to do tomorrow. I was just eating and noticing and being. After dinner, I cleaned up. I washed the dishes by hand, dried them, put them away. I wiped down the counters. I swept the floor. And then I went into the living room and I sat on the couch, and I didn't turn on the TV. I just sat there. Outside, I could hear fireworks starting, even though it was only 10:30. People get excited, I guess. They can't wait. And I could see, through the window, little bursts of light in the sky, far away, like distant stars being born and dying in the same second. I thought about the year that was ending. I thought about the things that had happened, some good things, some hard things, a lot of in-between things, the kind you don't really remember later but that make up most of your life. I thought about the people I'd talked to, the students I'd taught, the walks I'd taken, the books I'd read, the trees I'd looked at, thanks to Tom and his book about trees. And I thought, this was a year. I lived it. And now it's almost over. At 11:55, I stood up and I put on my coat and I went outside. It was cold. The kind of cold that makes your face hurt. But I wanted to be outside when it happened. I wanted to be in the world, not just watching it through a window. I stood in my backyard in the snow and I looked up at the sky. There weren't any stars that night, too many clouds. But I could still feel the bigness of it. The sky, the world, the universe, all of it happening at the same time. And then far away, I heard people counting down. I couldn't see them. I didn't know who they were. But I could hear them. Faint, carried on the wind. 10, 9, 8. I started counting with them even though they couldn't hear me. 7, 6, 5. And I thought about Gene, shuffling down his driveway. 4, 3. And I thought about Marilyn, adding a new muffin to the menu. 2. And I thought about trees, talking to each other underground. 1. And then it was midnight, the new year. And I stood there, alone in my backyard. And I said, out loud, Happy New Year. And then I went inside, and I went to bed, and I slept better than I had in months. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Maybe because it was important to me. Or maybe because I want you to know that you don't have to do anything big on New Year's Eve. You don't have to go to a party or make a spectacle. You can just be with yourself, and that can be enough. Sometimes the most meaningful moments are the quiet ones, the ones where nothing happens, but everything feels different. I've been thinking about resolutions again, about why we make them, and why we break them, and what we're really hoping for when we say, this year will be different. I think what we're hoping for is forgiveness, not from other people, from ourselves. We're hoping that the new year will give us permission to let go of the things we did wrong last year, the mistakes we made, the people we hurt or failed to help, the goals we didn't reach, the person we thought we'd be by now, but aren't. We're hoping that January 1st is a line in the sand, and everything before it doesn't count anymore. We get to start over, clean slate. But it doesn't work that way. You can't erase the past. It's still there behind you, part of you. You carry it with you into the new year, just like you carry everything else. But you can decide what it means. You can decide that last year was a rough draft, and this year is a revision. You can decide that the mistakes you made were lessons, not failures. You can decide that the person you were is not the person you have to be, and that's close enough to forgiveness, I think. Maybe that's what New Year really is. Not a fresh start, but a chance to forgive yourself for not being perfect. A chance to say, I did my best, even when my best wasn't very good. And that's okay. I'm still here. I get to try again. And if you break your resolution on January 2nd, or January 10th, or February 14th, that's okay too. You can forgive yourself for that. You can say, I tried, and trying matters, because it does. There's a tradition in some cultures where, on New Year's Day, you're supposed to do whatever you want to be doing for the rest of the year. If you want a year full of laughter, you should laugh. If you want a year full of good food, you should eat something delicious. If you want a year full of rest, you should take a nap. The idea is that the first day sets the tone for all the days that follow. I like that tradition. It's hopeful. It's intentional. It says pay attention to what you're doing right now because it matters. Last New Year's Day I took a walk. It was cold, but the sun was out, and the snow was sparkling, and I thought, I want this year to be full of walks. I want to keep moving. I want to see things. And I did. I took a lot of walks last year, more than I usually do. I don't know if it's because I took a walk on New Year's Day, or if it's just because I paid attention to the fact that I wanted to. But either way, it worked. This New Year's Day, well, the one that just passed, or the one that's coming, depending on when you're listening to this, I think I'm going to read something. Maybe a poem, or a chapter from a book I've been meaning to read. Because I want this year to be full of words. I want to keep learning. I want to be surprised by ideas. And maybe it'll work, or maybe it won't. But I'll try. What about you? What do you want your year to be full of? You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell anyone. But maybe on New Year's Day you could do it, just once, whatever it is, and see what happens. I want to tell you about a conversation I had with my grandmother before she died. This was a long time ago. I was maybe 22, 23. It was New Year's Day, and the family had gathered at her house for brunch, which was a tradition. She'd make eggs and sausage, and this coffee cake that had a cinnamon streusel topping that I've never been able to replicate, even though I have her recipe. It never comes out the same. After brunch, everyone was sitting around, talking, digesting, falling asleep on the couch. And I went into the kitchen to help my grandmother with the dishes. She was standing at the sink, washing, and I was drying, and we weren't really talking, just working. And then she said, out of nowhere, you know what I love about New Year, Joey? She was the only person who called me Joey. I said, what? And she said, it comes every year, no matter what. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to earn it. It just shows up. I thought about that. I said, yeah, I guess that's true. She handed me a plate, dripping with soap. She said, A lot of things in life you have to work for, you have to try, and that's good. But it's nice to have something that just happens, something you can count on. I dried the plate. I said, "Do you make resolutions?" She laughed. She had this laugh that was kind of like a bird chirping, light and quick. She said, "Not anymore. I'm too old to change." And I said, "You're not too old." And she said, "Maybe not. But I'm too tired." We finished the dishes in silence. And then, as she was drying her hands on a towel, she said, "But I'll tell you what I do. Every New Year I think of one person I want to forgive. Just one. And I forgive them. In my head. I don't tell them. I don't make a big thing out of it. I just let it go." I asked her who she was forgiving that year. She smiled. She said, "Myself." And then she hung up the towel and went back to the living room, and we never talked about it again. She died 3 years later, and every New Year since then I think about what she said. I think about forgiveness. I try to pick one person, like she did, and let go of whatever I've been holding on to. Some years it's easy. Some years it's hard. Some years, like her, I forgive myself, but I try, and I think she'd be happy about that. It's late now, or early, depending on how you think about it. The space between night and morning, when everything is quiet and still. If you're still awake, I'm a little surprised. But also, I'm glad. It's nice to have company, even if we're not in the same room. Even if you're just listening to my voice, somewhere, in the dark. If you've fallen asleep, that's good too. That means you're resting. That means tomorrow, or today, depending on when you wake up, you'll have a little more energy, a little more hope, and you'll need it. Not because the world is terrible, but because the world is hard, and beautiful, and strange, and full of things that don't make sense but somehow matter anyway. Like New Year, like the way we all agree, together, to care about a day that isn't really different from any other day. Like the way we count down from 10, and cheer and believe, just for a second, that we can be better. And maybe we can. I think about that line from the poet Mary Oliver, the one everyone quotes, but that I still think is true. She wrote, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And I used to think that was a lot of pressure. Like you had to have a plan. Like you had to do something big, something wild, something that justified the gift of being alive. But I don't think that's what she meant. I think she meant pay attention, notice things. Don't waste your life on autopilot. Be here. And that's what New Year is asking us to do, isn't it? It's saying, hey, you made it through another year. You're still here. What are you going to do with that? And the answer doesn't have to be big. It can be small. It can be, I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to learn about trees. I'm going to take more walks. I'm going to forgive someone. I'm going to call my mother. I'm going to notice the sky. It can be anything, as long as it's yours. I was driving home the other night, a few days after New Year, and I saw something I'd never seen before. It was late, maybe 10 or 11, and the roads were empty. And as I was coming around a curve, my headlights caught something in the field to my right. It was a deer, just standing there, in the snow, completely still, and it was looking at me. I slowed down. I didn't stop, but I slowed way down, and we looked at each other for a few seconds, me in my car, the deer in the field, both of us just there, existing at the same time, in the same place. And then I drove past, and it was gone, and I kept going home. But I thought about it for the rest of the drive. I thought about how unlikely it was that we'd be in that exact spot at that exact moment. How many things had to happen in both of our lives for us to see each other. How we'd both been born and grown and survived, and ended up on that road, in that field, on that night. And I thought, this is what life is. A series of moments like that. Small, strange, fleeting. Most of them you forget. But some of them stay with you, for reasons you can't explain. And I think that's okay. I think it's good, actually, to not understand everything, to just be surprised sometimes, to just be here. That's what I want for this year. I want to be surprised. I want to notice the deer in the field. I want to pay attention to the things I usually miss because I'm in a hurry, or distracted, or thinking about something else. I want to be here. And I hope you do too. Before I let you go, or before I let myself go, before I stop talking and let you drift off into sleep, or into your day, or into whatever comes next, I want to say one more thing. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here, in this moment, with me, even though we've never met, even though you're just a voice in my head, or I'm just a voice in yours. Thank you for making it through another year. I know it wasn't easy. I know some days were hard. I know some days you didn't think you'd make it, but you did, and that matters. You matter, and I hope this year is kind to you. I hope it's full of small surprises and quiet moments, and things that make you feel like life is worth paying attention to. I hope you learn something new. I hope you forgive someone, maybe even yourself. I hope you take a walk and notice the trees and think about how they're all connected. I hope you're here for all of it. Happy New Year, whenever it is for you. It's okay to close your eyes now, or to keep them open if you're not ready yet. Either way, I'll still be here, in a sense. These words will still be here, and tomorrow will still come, like it always does. And that's something, isn't it? That's really something. Good night.